single mom couldn't afford a birthday cake for her son, the billionaire's next move made them cry. "You know I love your mama very much, and I love you too." The billionaire knelt down on one knee in the butterfly pavilion, his voice trembling, as he looked into the eyes of a 7-year-old boy who had changed his entire world. "I'd like to be part of your family officially, if that would be okay with you. I'll never try to replace your biological father, but I'd be honored to be someone you could count on forever." The boy considered this with that particular seriousness only children possess, his gaze fixed on a monarch butterfly dancing overhead. "Would you still help me with my butterfly collection?" "Always." "Would you still read me the Metamorphosis chapter? It's my favorite. Every night if you want." The child paused, then spoke with profound simplicity. "Okay then. I love you too, Mr. Owen." But this moment, this beautiful transformation, it all started 6 months earlier, in a bookstore with a canceled birthday gift and a mother's quiet desperation. Let me take you back to where it all began, because what happened next will restore your faith in humanity. The late October afternoon cast amber light through the tall windows of Chapter and Canvas, the combination, bookstore and art supply shop that had become a beloved fixture in Maplewood's historic district. Autumn Hayes stood at the custom orders counter, her voice steady despite the tightness in her throat. "I need to cancel the storybook commission for next week." Her fingers worried the strap of her canvas messenger bag, paint-stained and fraying. At the edges, as she avoided the concerned gaze of Margot Chen, the store's owner, the smell of coffee and paper and oil pastels usually brought Autumn comfort, a reminder of dreams she had once held close. Today, it felt like mockery. Margot's silver eyeglasses slipped down her nose as she searched for the order slip. Cancel? But Autumn, Vivienne has already completed the first 6 illustrations. Jasper's butterfly book. It's extraordinary work. I know. The words caught in Autumn's throat. And I'm so sorry for the short notice. I'll pay whatever cancellation fee is fair. Something came up. What she couldn't say was that the school district had eliminated 2 teacher's aide positions, hers included. The choice had crystallized with brutal clarity. The custom-illustrated storybook Jasper had been dreaming about for months, or the medication copay that kept her 7-year-old son's anxiety manageable. There was no choice at all, really. "Does Jasper know?" Margot asked gently. She had known them since Jasper was 4, had watched Autumn browse the art books with longing, while her son arranged and rearranged the butterfly field guides into perfect chromatic order. "Not yet." Autumn blinked rapidly. "I'll find something else. Maybe I can make something myself. Draw him a simpler version." What neither woman noticed was the man seated in the reading alcove near the window, his attention drawn from the first edition he had been examining. Owen Blackwell had stopped at this particular bookstore on impulse, drawn by a window display featuring rare illustrated volumes. The shop reminded him of lazy Saturdays with his sister Claire before the cancer, before everything had shattered into before and after. Dressed in a black sweater and dark jeans, his concession to casual, though the watch on his wrist cost more than most cars, he had been enjoying the anonymity of being just another customer. But something about the woman's posture, the careful dignity in her voice as she apologized, for circumstances clearly beyond her control, made him lower his book and listen. "Your illustrations are better than anything Vivienne could create," Margot said firmly. "I've seen your sketchbooks, Autumn. You have a gift." "Had a gift," Autumn corrected quietly. "Had time for gifts. Now I have bills and responsibilities, and a son who needs me to be practical, not dreamy." Through the window, Owen watched as she left the store, pausing on the sidewalk, to compose herself before crossing to the small sedan in the parking lot. She sat motionless behind the wheel for a long moment, and even from this distance, he could see the exact instant her shoulders shook with suppressed emotion. He knew that posture. He had seen it in his own mother 20 years ago, when his father left, and the bills piled up faster than her 2 jobs could manage. He had seen it in himself, sitting in a hospital parking lot the day Claire died, when all his billions couldn't buy one more minute with his sister. "Sad situation," Owen remarked casually as Margot approached to refill his coffee cup. The older woman sighed, glancing toward the window where Autumn's car was pulling away. "Oh, you have no idea. Autumn Hayes. One of the most talented artists I've encountered in 40 years of running this shop, working herself to exhaustion as a teacher's aide while raising her son alone. Jasper is 7, brilliant child, sees the world differently than most. He's been talking about this birthday book for 6 months. What kind of book? Owen found himself asking, though something in his chest had already tightened with recognition. Custom illustrated storybook about butterflies. Margot's eyes grew distant. Jasper has high-functioning autism, and butterflies are his special interest. He can identify over 200 species, knows their scientific names, their migration patterns, everything. Autumn wanted to commission something special, but she's been saving up slowly. Now with the school cuts, she trailed off, shaking her head. The word butterflies hit Owen like a physical blow. His hand tightened on the coffee cup, knuckles whitening. Butterflies. Claire had loved butterflies with that same fierce passion. During her final months, too weak for much else, she had asked him to find a particular children's book illustrator whose work had brought her joy during treatment, an artist who signed their work simply, "Ah," and whose delicate watercolors of monarchs and swallowtails had adorned her hospital room. He had searched for 2 years without success. The publishing house that had produced the single book he had found had gone bankrupt, records lost. It had become his white whale, the one thing his billions couldn't buy, the final gift he couldn't give his sister. "This illustrator Vivian," Owen said carefully, his publisher's instincts rising despite the emotion churning in his chest. "Could I see the work in progress?" Margot hesitated. "It's a private commission." "Well, it was." "I understand." Owen withdrew a business card from his wallet, the gesture practiced from 1,000 board meetings. "I'm Owen Blackwell. I own Blackwell Publishing Group. I'm always searching for new illustration talent. If this Vivian is as good as you suggest—" "Oh, Vivian is competent," Margot interrupted, something shifting in her expression. "But Autumn is extraordinary. Let me show you something." She retrieved a portfolio from behind the counter, dusty from disuse. "She left this here 3 years ago, asking if I knew any publishers who might be interested. I made calls, but you know how it is. Everyone wants established names or social media influencers now." Owen opened the portfolio and felt time stop. Delicate watercolors bloomed across the pages, butterflies rendered with scientific precision, yet infused with something magical, a sense of transformation and hope. The style was unmistakable. He had been staring at the only book had ever published for 2 years, reading and rereading the pages until he had memorized every brushstroke. His hands trembled slightly as he turned the pages. A blue morpho, wings spread to show the iridescent scales Claire had loved. A Luna moth in pale green, antennae curled just so. A monarch mid-flight, orange and black wings caught in a moment of perfect grace. "Autumn haze," he said slowly, his voice rough. "Ah." Margot's eyes widened. "I'm sorry?" She illustrated the butterfly garden. 5 years ago. Small press, limited run. Recognition dawned on Margot's face. "I had no idea." She never mentioned it. But yes, that timeline fits. Right before Jasper was born, I think. She was going to pursue illustration full-time, but then life happened, Owen finished quietly. He understood that story. Dreams deferred. Survival prioritized over passion. The slow erosion of hope under the weight of necessity. For 2 years, Owen had contacted every publisher, every bookstore, every art gallery, trying to find the artist who had brought his sister such joy in her darkest hours. He had hired investigators. He had posted on obscure art forums. He had followed every cold lead until they all dissolved into nothing. And here she was, in a small town 90 minutes from his Boston office, canceling her own son's birthday gift because she had lost her job. "I'd like to commission Miss Hayes for a project," Owen said, his voice carefully controlled though his heart was racing. "A significant project. Could you arrange an introduction?" Margot studied him with those shrewd eyes that had assessed customers for 4 decades. "I'm not sure she'd accept. Autumn is proud. She doesn't like charity. It wouldn't be charity." Owen met her gaze steadily. "I've been searching for this particular illustrator for 2 years. I can show you the documentation, the emails, the dead ends. This is business. legitimate business. Though I'd appreciate your discretion about the birthday book situation. Understanding passed between them. Margot nodded slowly. I could call her, mention that a publisher came in, saw her old portfolio. Would she be interested in discussing a commission? That's not untrue. That would be perfect. Owen withdrew a folder from his leather bag, the one he carried everywhere with Claire's book inside. Show her this. Tell her someone remembers her work. Tell her it mattered. By the time Owen left chapter and canvas an hour later, the plan had taken shape. Margot would reach out to Autumn that evening. Frame it as serendipity. A publisher happened to see her portfolio, was impressed, wanted to discuss opportunities. Owen would handle the rest. Walking to his car, Owen pulled out his phone and looked at his background photo. Claire, 3 weeks before she died, holding that battered copy of The Butterfly Garden. Smiling, despite the oxygen cannula and the IV pole beside her hospital bed. Behind her, the walls were covered with butterfly printouts. Autumn Hayes's butterflies, though neither of them had known the artist's name. I found her, Claire, he whispered to the photo. I finally found her. Before we go any further, I need to pause here. If you believe in second chances, if you've ever felt that moment of quiet desperation, when you had to choose between impossible options, hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Dr. Phillips, because what happens next, it's going to remind you that miracles are real. They just don't always look the way we expect. Now let me tell you what happened when Autumn got that phone call. 3 days after canceling the book, Autumn sat at her cramped kitchen table, surrounded by bills that refused to add up, no matter how many times she rearranged them. The apartment was small, a one-bedroom where Jasper slept in the actual bedroom and Autumn made do with a pull-out couch in the living room. But it was clean and filled with light and close to Jasper's school. That mattered more than space. Mama, look. Jasper stood at the window, his voice carrying that flat effect that marked his speech, but his eyes shone with focus. Danaus plexippus, monarch. See the wing pattern? I see it, baby. Autumn looked up from the calculator, grateful for the interruption. It's beautiful. The vein structure is perfect, Jasper continued, not looking at her but at the butterfly beyond the glass. No tears or damage. Wingspan approximately 90 to 100 millimeters. Probably male based on the spot pattern. He was 7 years old and could lecture on butterfly anatomy like a graduate student. His teachers called it a special interest. His therapist called it a beautiful way his brain organized the world. Autumn called it a gift, even on the hard days when that gift came wrapped in meltdowns and sensory overwhelm and the exhaustion of advocating for a child the world wasn't quite built to accommodate. Are you excited about your birthday next week? Autumn asked, though the question sat heavy in her chest. Jasper turned from the window, his gaze sliding past her face to focus on the wall just beyond her left shoulder. He rarely made direct eye contact. She had learned not to force it. Yes, I'm turning 8. 8 is divisible by 2 and 4. It's an even number. I like even numbers. What would you like to do for your birthday? Butterfly pavilion at the Science Museum, he answered immediately. And cupcakes, vanilla with white frosting, no sprinkles. Sprinkles have unpredictable texture. We can do that, Autumn said, relief washing through her. The museum membership she had scraped together last Christmas still had 3 months left. Cupcakes she could manage. It wasn't the custom illustrated book, but Jasper didn't know about that loss yet. Her phone rang, interrupting the moment. Margot's name appeared on the screen. Hey Margot, Autumn answered, anxiety spiking. I promise I'll get you the cancellation fee by Friday. That's not why I'm calling. Margot's voice carried an unusual excitement. Something happened after you left the other day. A publisher came in. Owen Blackwell from Blackwell Publishing Group. Autumn's breath caught. She knew that name. Everyone in publishing knew that name. Blackwell had revolutionized digital publishing, then expanded into traditional books, art books, children's literature. They published beautifully, paid fairly, and had turned unknown artists into household names. He saw your portfolio, Margot continued. The one you left with me 3 years ago. Autumn, he wants to commission you. He's been looking for you, specifically. That doesn't make sense. Autumn's mind raced. Nobody's been looking for me. I did one book, 5 years ago, that maybe sold 300 copies before the publisher went bankrupt. He had a copy of The Butterfly Garden with him. Said it meant something to his sister. He's been searching for the artist. Autumn's hand trembled. The Butterfly Garden had been her heart project, created during her pregnancy with Jasper, when she had still believed art could be a career. She had poured everything into those illustrations. Hope, wonder, the transformation she had felt growing a child inside her body. Then the publisher had folded, the book had disappeared, and life had demanded more practical pursuits. He wants to meet with you, Margot said gently. Discuss a commission. A series, he said. Children's nature books. Autumn, the advance he mentioned, it would change things for you. What's the catch? Autumn heard the bitterness in her own voice. Publishers don't just track down unknown artists for major commissions. Maybe they do when the artist is talented enough. Maybe someone finally recognized what I've been telling you for years. You have a gift. After the call ended, Autumn sat staring at her phone. Jasper had returned to the window, humming softly as he watched for more butterflies. The sound soothed him, helped him regulate. She had learned his patterns, his needs, the way other mothers learned lullabies. Could this be real? Could someone actually want her art after all this time? Or was it pity? Had Margot mentioned her situation? Was this Owen Blackwell some kind of philanthropist who helped struggling single mothers as a tax write-off? The shame of that possibility burned, but not as much as the desperate hope blooming in her chest. She agreed to the meeting. 2 days later, Autumn sat in a quiet corner cafe in downtown Maplewood. Her portfolio spread on the table between her and Owen Blackwell. Up close, he was younger than she had expected, maybe early 40s, with dark eyes that held a sadness she recognized. Grief had a particular weight. She saw it every time she looked in the mirror, though hers was different. Not death, but loss of another kind. The slow erosion of the person she had meant to become. Your work is remarkable, Owen said, studying a watercolor of a Luna moth with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Technically precise, yet emotionally resonant. Exactly what I've been searching for. Thank you. Autumn kept her voice professional, guarded. Margot mentioned you're interested in a children's book series? Among other projects, Owen withdrew a worn, beloved book from his leather bag. But first, are you familiar with this? Autumn's breath caught. The Butterfly Garden. Her book. But this copy was different from the pristine author copies she had in a box at home. This one was creased and softened from repeated reading. The spine was cracked. Pages were dog-eared. I illustrated that years ago, she managed. I didn't think anyone remembered it. My sister Claire did. Owen's voice wavered slightly, and Autumn saw him steady himself. She was undergoing treatment for leukemia when she found this book in a hospital gift shop. She read it constantly, said it gave her hope. Autumn felt tears spring to her eyes. I'm so sorry. Is she? She died 2 years ago. Owen looked at the book in his hands like it held something precious. She was 29, and before she died, she asked me to find you, the artist who painted these butterflies. She wanted to tell you that your work reminded her that transformation was possible even in darkness. The words hit Autumn like a physical blow. For years, she had wondered if that book mattered to anyone, if those months of work had touched even a single person. And here was this man, this billionaire publisher, telling her that her art had brought comfort to someone dying, that it had mattered in the most profound way possible. I failed to find you in time, Owen continued, his voice rough with emotion. I searched for 2 years, hired investigators, contacted every publisher and gallery. The trail always went cold. And then 3 days ago, I walked into a bookstore on impulse, and there you were. Your portfolio, your name, like the universe finally decided to give me a second chance. Autumn wiped at her eyes, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say you'll work with me. Owen's intensity was almost overwhelming. I want to publish a series of illustrated nature books, children's books that combine scientific accuracy with emotional depth. The kind of books that give hope to kids going through impossible things, and I want you to illustrate them. He outlined the project then. A series starting with butterflies, expanding to other insects, eventually birds and marine life. Full creative control for Autumn. A timeline of 6 months per book, and an advance that made Autumn's hands shake when he said the number. $45,000 for the first book. It was more than she had made in the past 2 years combined. It was breathing room. It was quitting her overnight hospital shifts and focusing on Jasper. It was therapy co-pays without panic. It was, for the first time since Jasper's father had walked out, actual security. What's the catch? She heard herself ask, suspicion warring with desperate hope. No catch. Owen's gaze was steady. This is a legitimate business opportunity. Blackwell Publishing is expanding our children's division. We need talented illustrators. You're extraordinarily talented. And he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Your work has personal meaning to me because of Claire. But that doesn't make this charity. That makes this the right artist for the right project. Autumn wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe. There is one condition, though, Owen said, and Autumn's stomach dropped. I'd like to meet your son Jasper. Margot mentioned he's quite the butterfly expert. All of Autumn's protective instincts flared. Why? Because Claire worked with children on the autism spectrum before she got sick. She always said they saw magic in the details everyone else missed. Owen's expression softened. I'm not trying to overstep. I'd just like to meet him. Maybe at his birthday celebration? Margot mentioned it's coming up. How much did Margot tell you? Autumn's voice was sharp. Just that Jasper loves butterflies and has a birthday soon. Owen met her defensiveness with calm understanding. Look, I know this seems too convenient, too perfect. I know what it's like to struggle, Autumn. My father left when I was 8. My mother worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. I understand pride. I understand not wanting to be anyone's charity case. He leaned forward, his voice earnest. But I also understand what it's like to search desperately for something and finally find it. I've been looking for you for 2 years. 2 years of dead ends and disappointments. And now you're here, and you have a son who loves the same thing my sister loved. And maybe that's not coincidence. Maybe that's just how life works sometimes. The right people find each other when they're supposed to. Autumn studied him, trying to see past the wealth and the polish to the person underneath. What she saw was grief, yes, but also sincerity. A man who had loved his sister enough to search for 2 years. A man who understood loss. Okay, she said finally. The birthday celebration is Saturday at the Science Museum Butterfly Pavilion. Small thing, just a few of his friends. You can come if you want. I'd be honored, Owen said, and his smile transformed his face from careful businessman to something younger, more vulnerable. They spent the next hour discussing the project details, contract terms, timelines. Owen was professional, knowledgeable, respectful of her creative vision. By the time they parted ways, Autumn's portfolio filled with his notes and her. Head spinning with possibilities, she almost believed this could be real. Almost. That evening, after tucking Jasper into bed, she called her best friend, Kelly, the only person who knew the full extent of her financial crisis. So, let me get this straight, Kelly said, after Autumn explained the situation. A Billionaire publisher just happened to walk into Margot's store the exact day you canceled Jasper's book. He just happened to see your portfolio. He just happened to have been searching for you for 2 years. And now, he wants to pay you $45,000 and meet your son. I know how it sounds, Autumn said. It sounds too good to be true. Kelly's voice was gentle but skeptical. Autumn, honey, I love you. And I want this to be real for you. But I also know you've been burned before. Jasper's dad promised a lot of pretty things too. This is different. This is business, is it? Because it sounds personal. He wants to meet Jasper. Why would a publisher need to meet a 7-year-old? Autumn didn't have a good answer for that. She lay awake long into the night, arguments cycling through her mind. It was too convenient, too perfect. Men who seemed too good to be true usually were. But when she looked at her bank account, at the pile of bills, at the bottle of Jasper's anxiety, medication that cost $160 even with insurance, the decision made itself. She needed this. even if it was too good to be true, even if it fell apart later. Right now, she needed to believe in second chances. Saturday arrived with perfect autumn weather. The Science Museum's Butterfly Pavilion was a dome of glass and greenery, where hundreds of butterflies from around the world flew free. It was Jasper's favorite place on earth. Autumn had invited 4 of his classmates, children from his social skills group, who understood his differences. She had bought vanilla cupcakes with white frosting from the grocery store bakery. It wasn't the custom illustrated book, but Jasper was happy. That was what mattered. "Mama, look." Jasper stood motionless in the center of the pavilion, a small figure, in his favorite blue shirt, the exact shade of a blue morpho's wings. Danaus plexippus, monarch. Look at the wing pattern. Perfect symmetry. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Autumn crouched beside him, camera ready to capture his wonder. "Excuse me," a deep voice interrupted, and Autumn turned to see Owen approaching, carrying a wrapped package. "You must be Jasper." Jasper didn't look at him, his gaze fixed on the butterflies overhead. His body tensed slightly at the unfamiliar voice. "Jasper, this is Mr. Blackwell," Autumn said gently, using the warning tone that helped prepare him for interactions. "He's a friend of Mama's. He loves butterflies, too. Do you know the scientific names?" Jasper asked without preamble, still not making eye contact. "Some," Owen replied, careful not to move too close. "My sister taught me. She loved Papilioglockus best. Eastern tiger swallowtail." Jasper's voice carried a note of approval. "Papilionidae family. Wingspan, 90 to 165 millimeters. Yellow with black stripes. Males are yellow. Females can be yellow or black." "That's exactly right." Owen's voice carried genuine warmth, not the condescending tone adults often use with Jasper. "You know a lot more than I do." "I'm an expert," Jasper stated matter-of-factly. "I know 237 species." Owen smiled. "Then I came to the right place to learn. I brought you something for your birthday. You don't have to open it now if you don't want to." But Jasper's routine-oriented mind won out over shyness. He approached the package with careful movements, unwrapping it with methodical precision that most adults would call slow, but Autumn recognized as his way of processing. Inside was a book. "The Butterfly Garden," Jasper read aloud. Then he gasped, the sharp intake of breath Autumn recognized as intense emotion. Mama, these butterflies, they look like your butterflies." "That's because your mama painted them," Owen said softly. "This was my sister Claire's favorite book. I thought you should have her copy." Autumn's eyes filled with tears as she watched Jasper reverently turn the pages, his fingers tracing the watercolor monarchs and swallowtails she had painted in another lifetime, when she had still believed in dreams. "These are beautiful," Jasper whispered, and then he did something that made Autumn's heart clench. He looked directly at Owen, eye contact that she knew cost him significant effort. "My mama is the best artist in the world." Owen's eyes glistened. "I agree completely. That's why I want her to make more books. And I was hoping you might help us make sure the facts are accurate. Would you be willing to be our expert consultant?" Jasper's solemn nod sealed something unspoken, a pact, a beginning. The afternoon unfolded with Jasper showing Owen his favorite butterflies, rattling off facts with the enthusiasm he usually reserved for his therapists and teachers who understood his passion. Owen listened with genuine interest, asked thoughtful questions, never once seemed impatient or condescending. Autumn watched from a bench, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. Then it happened. The sensory overload moment Autumn had been watching for. Too much stimulation, too many butterflies, too many people. Jasper's humming grew louder, his hands started flapping, and his breathing quickened. "I need quiet time," he announced, his voice rising with distress. Autumn was already moving, reaching into her bag for his noise-canceling headphones and the weighted lap pad that helped him calm. "Come on, baby. Let's go to the quiet corner." They retreated to a secluded bench away from the main pavilion. Autumn helped Jasper put on his headphones, placed the lap pad across his legs, and pulled out his favorite picture book. She had learned this routine through countless repetitions. Give him space. Let him decompress. Don't push. She glanced back toward where they had been standing, expecting Owen to look uncomfortable or impatient. Instead, he simply nodded understanding and moved to give them privacy. He didn't follow, didn't hover, didn't make Jasper's need for regulation into something awkward. 20 minutes later, when Jasper had calmed and they rejoined the small party, Owen was helping the other children identify butterflies, reading from an identification guide with patience. "I'm sorry about that," Autumn said quietly, standing beside him while Jasper went off to observe a newly emerged butterfly with his friends. Sorry for what? Owen looked genuinely confused. For Jasper, needing a break. I know it can be awkward when he gets overwhelmed. Owen turned to face her, his expression serious. Autumn, there's nothing to apologize for. He recognized his needs and communicated them clearly. That's not a problem. That's a skill a lot of adults don't have. The kindness in his voice, the absolute lack of judgment, cracked something in Autumn's carefully constructed defenses. Thank you, she whispered, for understanding, for not making him feel like he needs to be different. They sat together on the bench, watching Jasper and his friends chase butterflies with gentle hands and loud excitement. The November sun slanted through the glass dome, casting rainbow patterns across the floor. Can I ask you something? Owen said after a while. Why did you stop? Illustrating, I mean. The Butterfly Garden was published 5 years ago, but I couldn't find any other work under your name. Autumn was quiet for a long moment, debating how much truth to share. Life happened, she finally said. I got pregnant with Jasper during my final semester of art school. His father, my boyfriend at the time, he was supportive initially. We talked about me freelancing from home, raising the baby together, making it work. She took a breath, old pain surfacing. Then, Jasper was born, and he was perfect. But by 18 months, it was clear he was developing differently. The pediatrician mentioned autism, recommended evaluations, early intervention, therapies, and his father. He couldn't handle it. Owen was very still beside her, listening. He left when Jasper was 3. Autumn continued. Said we were too much work, that he hadn't signed up for a special needs kid, that I was too focused on being Jasper's mother to be a real partner. Autumn. Owen's voice was rough. I'm sorry. That's cruel. She supplied. Yeah, but also clarifying. It taught me that I couldn't depend on anyone, that Jasper and I were a package deal, and if someone couldn't handle both of us, they didn't deserve either of us. So I stopped pursuing art, got practical jobs with insurance benefits, focused on survival instead of dreams. For what it's worth, Owen said quietly, he was a fool who didn't deserve you. Before we continue, I need you to do something for me. If this story is touching your heart, if you've ever felt like you had to choose between your dreams and your responsibilities, show some love with a like. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And comment below where you're watching from, or just tell me I'm with you, Dr. Phillips. Your engagement helps us reach people who need hope. Now let me tell you what happened next, because this is where everything started to change. Over the following weeks, what had begun as a business arrangement slowly transformed into something neither Autumn nor Owen had anticipated. Owen made regular trips from Boston to Maplewood, ostensibly to review illustration drafts and discuss the book series. But the visits grew longer, more personal. He started arriving with research materials for Jasper, field guides to North American butterflies, documentary DVDs about monarch migration, scientific journals written for children. Jasper accepted these gifts with his characteristic seriousness, immediately cataloging them into his organizational system. Owen also brought coffee for Autumn, her specific order, a vanilla latte with an extra shot, which he had noticed during their second meeting and remembered ever since. Small gestures that felt enormous to someone who had spent years in survival mode where no one noticed the details. The visits settled into a pattern. Owen would arrive Saturday mornings. They would review Autumn's week of work, her illustrations spread across the cramped kitchen table. Then Owen would help Jasper with whatever project currently consumed him, building a butterfly habitat in the tiny balcony garden, organizing his growing collection of field guides, watching nature documentaries, and discussing migration patterns. Autumn would paint at her easel in the corner, supposedly focused on her work, but really watching Owen interact with her son. The patience he showed, the genuine interest, the way he never tried to change Jasper, just appreciated him. One Saturday in late November, 6 weeks after their first meeting, Autumn looked up from her painting to find Owen and Jasper building an elaborate butterfly life cycle diagram on poster board. Jasper was explaining the stages of metamorphosis with the intensity of a college professor. Owen was taking notes like the information was critical. So the caterpillar basically dissolves completely inside the chrysalis? Owen asked. It turns into soup? Imaginal discs, Jasper corrected. The caterpillar's body breaks down into cellular soup, but certain cells called imaginal discs survive. Those cells contain the blueprint for the butterfly. They reorganize the soup into wings and antennae and compound eyes. Complete transformation. That's incredible, Owen said, and he meant it. Jasper, do you know what that reminds me of? People can transform too. Sometimes we have to break down before we can become something new. Jasper considered this seriously, like when Mama stopped being an artist and became a teacher's aide. But now she's being an artist again? Exactly like that. Autumn's hands stilled on her paintbrush, emotion tightening her throat. Was that what was happening? Was she transforming? Or was she just in the soup stage, dissolved and disorganized, hoping the imaginal discs knew what they were doing? That evening, after Jasper had gone to bed, Owen lingered. He helped Autumn clean up the art supplies, their hands brushing as they reached for the same paint tube. The contact sent electricity through her. Why do you keep coming here? Autumn asked suddenly, the question that had been building for weeks. You have a whole empire to run. Surely you have people who could handle the art direction. Owen set down the brushes he had been rinsing. Because this, he gestured around the small apartment, cluttered with art supplies and carefully labeled butterfly displays, is the first place I felt at peace since Claire died. Autumn's breath caught. You and Jasper, Owen continued, his voice low and earnest. You've reminded me what matters. I built an empire worth billions. I revolutionized digital publishing. I've negotiated with the toughest business minds in the world, but I forgot why any of it mattered. I forgot about beauty and passion and the kind of dedication you show every single day. Raising Jasper, pursuing your art despite impossible circumstances, choosing hope when despair would be easier. We're just ordinary people living an ordinary life, Autumn whispered. No, Owen's voice was fierce. You're an extraordinary artist who sacrificed her dreams for her child. Jasper is a remarkable kid who sees the world in ways that would benefit us all. There's nothing ordinary about either of you. The intensity in his eyes was almost too much. Autumn felt tears prick her eyelids, old defenses rising. I can't be your charity project, Owen. The words came out harsh, protective. I can't be the struggling single mother you saved to feel better about your sister's death. She watched him flinch, saw the pain flash across his face. But she couldn't stop, fear and old wounds driving the words. You appear out of nowhere with everything I need, the perfect commission, the perfect advance, the perfect understanding of my son. That's not coincidence. That's a savior complex. Is that really what you think this is? Owen's voice was quiet, controlled, but she could hear the hurt underneath. I don't know what to think. Autumn wrapped her arms around herself. I've known you for 6 weeks. You've been incredibly generous, but I've been burned before. I've learned that when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Owen was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a vulnerability she hadn't heard before. You want the truth? When I saw you in that bookstore, canceling your son's gift because you'd lost your job, you looked exactly like my mother did the year after my father left, proud and terrified, and trying so hard to hold it together. He met her gaze directly. I was 8 years old, and I couldn't help her then. I watched her work herself sick, watched her choose between groceries and electricity, watched her pride keep her from accepting help, even when we desperately needed it. And I promised myself that when I had resources, I would help people who reminded me of her, people who deserved better than the hand they'd been dealt. Autumn felt her anger deflating, replaced by something more complicated. And then Claire got sick, Owen continued, his voice roughening. I had all the money in the world, the best doctors, the best treatments, and none of it mattered. I couldn't save her. I couldn't even fulfill her final request to find the artist whose work brought her comfort. For 2 years I failed at the one thing she asked of me. He took a step closer, and Autumn didn't move away. So yes, when I found you, when I realized I could help someone who reminded me of my mother while also honoring my sister's memory, I took the opportunity. But that doesn't make this charity. You are phenomenally talented. Your work deserves to reach millions of people. And if helping you also helps me heal from losing Claire, is that really so terrible? I'm scared, Autumn whispered, the admission costing her. Jasper already adores you. If you decide we're too complicated, too much work, if you leave, it will destroy him. It will destroy me. And I can't. I can't survive being left again. Owen's expression softened. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I'm still learning how to be part of someone's life again. I've spent 2 years in grief, avoiding real connection. But I can promise I'm here because I choose to be, not because I pity you, not to assuage guilt, but because you make me believe in transformation again. You and Jasper, you're teaching me that beautiful things can emerge from broken places. The space between them hummed with possibility. Autumn felt her carefully constructed walls cracking, light streaming through the fractures. This terrifies me, she admitted. Me too, Owen said. And then he kissed her. Tentative at first, testing, asking permission with the gentle pressure of his lips against hers. Autumn's hands came up to his chest, felt his heart racing as fast as her own. The kiss deepened, and she tasted possibility and risk and the desperate hope she had been trying so hard to protect herself from. When they finally pulled apart, Autumn was crying, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. I haven't let anyone this close since Jasper's father left, she said, the words tumbling out. He said I was too much, that I cared more about being Jasper's mother than being his partner, that my son was defective and I was wasting my life trying to fix him. Owen's jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. Then he was a fool. Jasper isn't defective. He's different, and the world needs more people who see beauty in details, who pursue knowledge with passion, who communicate honestly even when it's hard. You're not wasting your life raising him. You're raising someone extraordinary. The fierce certainty in his voice broke something open in Autumn. She leaned into him, let herself be held, and for the first time in years, allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, not everyone would leave. They talked late into the night. Autumn shared the reality of single parenthood. The IEP meetings where she fought for services, the meltdowns in grocery stores while strangers judged. Isolation of loving someone the world wasn't built to accommodate. The bone-deep exhaustion, the fierce joy, the moments of transcendent beauty when Jasper made a connection or shared a discovery, or looked at her with those serious eyes and said, I love you, Mama, in his precise voice. Owen shared his own story. The childhood poverty, his mother's 3 jobs, eating cereal for dinner more often than he admitted, building his company from nothing, driven by the memory of bill collectors and disconnection notices, meeting Claire's medical crisis with every resource he could muster, and learning that some battles money couldn't win. By the time he left, well past midnight, something fundamental had shifted. They were no longer just artist and publisher. They were 2 people who had survived their own kinds of dissolution, hovering in the soup stage, hoping their imaginal discs knew the way to transformation. The weeks that followed brought a tentative new rhythm. Owen's visits continued, but the pretense of pure business faded. He stayed for dinner, simple meals of pasta and vegetables that autumn, threw together while Jasper set the table in his specific way. They watched nature documentaries together, Jasper between them on the couch, explaining details the narrators missed. Owen met Autumn's small circle, Kelly, her best friend who remained skeptical but warming, Jasper's therapist who noted the positive changes in his social confidence, the teacher who coordinated his IEP and was amazed at his expanding vocabulary and willingness to engage. But there were also challenges, moments when the gulf between their worlds became stark. Owen casually mentioning a business trip to Paris while Autumn calculated whether she could afford Jasper's new sensory processing therapy. His surprise when she declined an expensive restaurant, not wanting, to explain that she didn't own clothes nice enough for such places. Small moments of friction as they navigated radically different lived experiences. One evening in mid-December, they argued for the first time. Owen had suggested moving Autumn and Jasper to a larger apartment, something, with a real bedroom for Autumn and a dedicated studio space. He would cover the cost as a business expense. After all, the artist needed proper working conditions. Autumn had refused. Firmly, angrily. "I'm not a kept woman," she had said, old shame and new fear colliding. "I won't let you pay my rent. It's not about keeping you." Owen's frustration was evident. "You're sleeping on a pull-out couch in your own living room because you gave Jasper the only bedroom. You're painting in a corner with terrible lighting. I'm simply suggesting better working conditions. Suggesting with your checkbook." "That's not suggesting, that's control." They had parted that night with tension unresolved, both wounded and defensive. Autumn lay awake on her pull-out couch, wondering if she had just sabotaged the best thing to happen to her in years. But the next morning, Owen called. "You're right," he said without preamble. "I overstepped. I'm used to solving problems with resources, and I forgot that you're not a problem to solve. I'm sorry." The apology, simple and sincere, melted Autumn's anger. "I'm scared of needing you," she admitted, "of getting comfortable with help and then having it disappear. I've built a life where Jasper and I can survive on our own. Accepting more feels like giving up the one thing I can control." "I understand that," Owen said quietly. "But Autumn, partnership isn't about control. It's about choosing to build something together. I'm not asking you to need me. I'm asking you to let me walk beside you. There's a difference." They worked through it, slowly, with conversation and compromise and the recognition that both were learning. Owen learned to offer help without imposing it. Autumn learned to accept support without interpreting it as judgment of her inadequacy. By the time Christmas approached, they had settled into something that felt impossibly like family. Owen joined them for their modest celebration, a small tree from the grocery store lot, presents carefully budgeted, Jasper's excitement over a new butterfly identification app, and a set of watercolor pencils. The three of them making cookies with cutouts in butterfly shapes, frosted, in scientifically accurate colors per Jasper's specifications. It was nothing like the lavish holidays Owen could afford. But sitting on the floor of Autumn's tiny living room, Jasper explaining the difference between a moth and a butterfly to Owen for the 6th time, Autumn caught Owen's eye. The look that passed between them held wonder, gratitude, the fragile hope of people learning to trust again. "This," Owen mouthed, gesturing to the scene. "Everything." Autumn smiled through tears. "Everything," she agreed. "But life has a way of testing us right when we start to feel safe. And what happened next would either break them apart forever or forge them into something unbreakable." Because 2 weeks after Christmas, in the dead of winter, Jasper got sick. It started as a simple cold. Runny nose, slight cough, nothing alarming for a typical child. But Jasper wasn't typical. His sensory sensitivities meant even minor illness became overwhelming. The congestion bothered him intensely. He couldn't sleep, couldn't regulate. His anxiety spiked. Autumn managed it with their usual tools: humidifier, saline spray, extrasensory breaks. But on day 3, Jasper's breathing changed. Faster, shallow. His lips took on a bluish tint. The emergency room doctor used words like respiratory distress and pneumonia and admitted him immediately. Within hours, Jasper was in the pediatric ICU, oxygen mask covering his small face, IV line, threading into his arm, monitors beeping a rhythm that would haunt Autumn's nightmares. She sat beside his bed, holding his hand, watching his chest rise and fall with mechanical assistance. Every maternal instinct screamed helplessness. This was the nightmare, the unthinkable. Her child struggling to perform the most basic function, breathing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Owen, sent at 2 in the morning. "Just saw your message. I'm coming." She hadn't asked him to come, hadn't expected it. But an hour later, he appeared in the ICU waiting room, snow dusting his shoulders. From the drive through the winter storm, eyes red-rimmed and worried. "How is he?" Owen asked, pulling Autumn into his arms. She collapsed into his chest, finally allowing herself to break. I can't lose him. He's everything. If something happens, nothing is going to happen, Owen said fiercely. The doctors say he's responding to treatment. He's strong, just like his mother. I'm not strong. Autumn's voice was muffled against his coat. I'm barely holding on. You're the strongest person I know. Owen pulled back to look at her face. But you don't have to hold on alone anymore. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And he wasn't. For 3 days, Owen stayed. He brought Autumn food she barely touched, held her while she slept in fitful bursts in uncomfortable waiting room chairs, sat with Jasper when the boy was awake enough to want his butterfly books read aloud. He navigated the medical bureaucracy, made calls to specialists, never once suggesting his money could solve everything, though he quietly ensured Jasper had the best possible care. He was just present, steady, there. On the 3rd day, when Jasper finally turned a corner and his breathing eased, the first thing he said upon waking was, "Did the monarch butterflies finish their migration?" Autumn laughed through her tears, the question so perfectly Jasper that her heart swelled. "Yes, baby, they made it to Mexico safely." "Good." Jasper's eyes found Owen standing near the door. His voice was hoarse from the oxygen mask. "Did you bring the new book? The one about metamorphosis?" "I did." "Should we read chapter 3? Owen settled into the chair beside Jasper's hospital bed. His voice was steady and calm as he began reading about chrysalis formation. Autumn watched from the doorway, emotion overwhelming her. This man, this billionaire publisher who could be anywhere in the world, was choosing to be here, reading about butterflies to her 7-year-old son in a pediatric ICU. Not out of obligation, not out of pity, but because somewhere along the way, they had become his people. That night, after Jasper had fallen back asleep and the nurses had finished their rounds, Autumn and Owen stood in the sterile hospital corridor. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. Autumn was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, running on fumes and fear and desperate gratitude. "I love you," she said. The words emerged simple and true. "I've been too afraid to say it, but watching you with him these past days, I realized I've been in love with you for weeks." Owen cupped her face in his hands. "I fell in love with you the moment I saw your paintings and realized the artist I'd been searching for was real. I fell deeper the first time Jasper explained butterfly wing patterns with such passion. I fell completely when you told me you were afraid, because it meant you trusted me enough to be vulnerable." Their kiss was different this time. Not tentative, but certain. A promise made in a hospital corridor with monitors beeping and nurses passing, and the world reduced to this moment, this choice, this commitment to whatever came next. Jasper's recovery was gradual, realistic, the kind that required patience and vigilance. 5 days in the hospital before the doctors cleared him to go home. Even then, he needed breathing treatments every 4 hours, medication schedules that Autumn tracked with military precision, and careful monitoring for any sign of relapse. Owen helped. He installed a medical-grade air purifier in the apartment. He researched nebulizer techniques. He learned Jasper's medication schedule as thoroughly as he knew his own board meeting calendar. He made soup from his mother's old recipe, the one that had sustained him through childhood illnesses. He was just there, integrated into their daily life in a way that felt natural, inevitable, like he had always been part of their small family. 1 week after coming home from the hospital, Jasper was finally well enough to sit at the kitchen table and work on organizing his butterfly collection. His energy was still low, but his focus had returned. That particular intensity that meant his brilliant mind was engaged again. Owen sat beside him, handing over specimens as Jasper directed. Autumn painted at her easel, supposedly working on deadline illustrations, but really just watching the two of them together. "Mr. Owen," Jasper said, not looking up from the mounting board where he was carefully positioning a blue morpho specimen. "Why do you come here so much?" Owen considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. "Because I love your mama, and I love you too." Jasper's hands stilled. His gaze remained fixed on the butterfly. "Do you love us enough to stay?" "My other dad didn't stay," Autumn's paintbrush froze mid-stroke. They had never discussed Jasper's father in depth. She had assumed he didn't remember much. He'd been so young when his father left. "I remember him a little bit," Jasper continued, his voice carrying that flat affect that meant he was processing big emotions. "He used to get mad when I hummed. He said I was too loud and too weird. Is that why he left? Because I'm weird?" Autumn was already moving, setting down her brush, crossing to the table. But Owen spoke first. "Jasper, you're not weird. You're different. And different is interesting and important and valuable. Your dad left because he couldn't appreciate different. That's his failure, not yours. But what if you decide, I'm too different?" Jasper's voice was small, younger than his 8 years. "What if I have too many meltdowns, or talk about butterflies too much, or need too many breaks? What if you get tired like he did?" Owen's eyes glistened with unshed tears. He looked at Autumn, asking silent permission. She nodded. "Can I tell you something?" Owen said gently. "When I was 8 years old, my dad left too. He said my mom worried too much about bills and didn't smile enough anymore. He said we made his life too stressful, so he left." Jasper looked up, making brief eye contact. "Your dad left you?" "Yes, and for a long time. I thought it was my fault. I thought if I had been better, quieter, less expensive, maybe he would have stayed. But my mom taught me something important. She said people who leave were never really there to begin with. They were just visiting. The people who stay, who choose to be there even when it's hard, those are your real family." Jasper processed this, his serious face thoughtful. "Are you visiting or staying?" "I'm staying," Owen said firmly. "I'm staying through the meltdowns and the butterfly lectures and the days when everything is too loud or too bright. I'm staying through hospital visits and medication schedules and IEP meetings. I'm staying because you and your mama are my family now. If you'll have me." "Okay," Jasper said, returning his attention to the butterfly specimen. "That's good. I like when you stay." It was such a Jasper response. No big, emotional display. Just acceptance and return to the task at hand. But Autumn saw Owen's shoulders relax, saw the weight of worry lift from his expression. That night, after Jasper was asleep, Owen and Autumn sat on the small balcony despite the February cold. The city lights twinkled below. Somewhere, monarchs were beginning their journey north from Mexico. Spring migration starting even as winter still gripped New England. "Thank you," Autumn said quietly, "for what you said to Jasper about staying. I meant every word." Owen pulled her closer against the cold. "I know we're still figuring this out. I know I mess up sometimes, try to solve things with money when you need something else. But I'm learning, and I'm committed to learning. I'm sorry I'm so prickly about accepting help." Autumn leaned into his warmth. "I'm trying to let go of the idea that needing people makes me weak. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Owen pressed a kiss to her temple. "We're building something here, Autumn, the three of us. It's not going to look like traditional families. It's going to look like us. Butterfly books and sensory breaks and hospital vigils and late-night painting sessions. But it's real. It's ours." The next weeks brought a deepening of their relationship. Owen started keeping clothes at the apartment, a drawer in Autumn's dresser, a toothbrush in the bathroom, small markers of a drawer in Autumn's dresser, a toothbrush in the bathroom, small markers of permanence that both thrilled and terrified her. They fell into routines. Owen working from Autumn's kitchen table on Fridays, video conferences with his publishing team while Jasper did homework nearby. Saturday morning trips to the Science Museum, the three of them wandering exhibits while Jasper lectured on insect anatomy. Sunday evenings cooking dinner together, Jasper carefully measuring ingredients with the precision he brought to everything. Autumn's book was progressing beautifully. The illustrations were some of her best work, infused with hope and transformation. Owen's team at Blackwell Publishing was thrilled. They had already scheduled the launch for May, lined up book tours, planned a publicity campaign. But more than professional success, Autumn felt something shifting inside herself. The woman who had stood in a bookstore 4 months ago, canceling her son's birthday gift, barely holding herself together, that woman was transforming. Not into someone new, into someone she had been before fear and survival mode had hardened her edges. She was becoming herself again. One evening in late March, Owen arrived with unusual nervousness. Autumn noticed immediately. He was fidgeting with his watch. A tell she had learned meant he was anxious. "Everything okay?" she asked, setting down the dinner she was preparing. "Yes. No. Maybe." Owen ran a hand through his hair. "I have something I want to discuss with you. With both of you, really." Jasper looked up from his homework, always alert to changes in routine or emotional tone. "What's going on?" Autumn's protective instincts rose. "Nothing bad," Owen assured her quickly. "Actually, something good. I hope. The Blackwell Foundation, my charitable organization, we're launching a new initiative. The Claire Blackwell Foundation for Neurodivergent Children." Autumn's breath caught. "Owen, that's wonderful. It's going to support families raising neurodivergent kids. Therapy funding, educational advocacy, respite care, but also arts programming, special interest support, sensory-friendly spaces. All the things families actually need, not just what sounds good in a press release." He pulled out a folder, handed it to Autumn. "And I want you to be the artistic director. Help design the programs. Consult on what actually helps versus what's performative. Use your experience raising Jasper to inform how we support other families." Autumn opened the folder, scanned the program descriptions, the budget allocations, the mission statement. It was everything she had ever needed when Jasper was first diagnosed. Everything she had fought for alone. "This is incredible," she whispered. "But Owen, I'm not qualified. I don't have a degree in social work or nonprofit management. You have something better. You have lived experience. You know what it's like to fight for services, to advocate in IEP meetings, to research therapies at 2 a.m. because your kid is struggling and you're desperate for answers. That's the expertise we need." Jasper had abandoned his homework, listening intently. "Will it help other kids like me?" "That's the goal," Owen said, kneeling to Jasper's level. "Kids who see the world differently, who have special interests and sensory needs and brilliant minds that don't fit in typical boxes. We want to support them and their families." "I could help," Jasper offered. "I could tell you what helps me, like how the weighted lap pad feels good and fluorescent lights are too bright, and people should say what they mean instead of using confusing metaphors." "That would be incredibly valuable," Owen said seriously. "Would you be willing to be a consultant? We could call you our expert advisor." Jasper nodded solemnly. "I accept the position." Autumn laughed through tears. "When do we start?" "The foundation officially launches in 6 months," Owen said. "But I wanted to tell you first. This is Claire's legacy. She loved working with neurodivergent kids. She said they taught her to see beauty in unexpected places. And watching you with Jasper, seeing how you fought for him and celebrated him, and built a life that honors his needs, it reminded me what she was trying to do." He took Autumn's hands. "You've already transformed my life. I'm hoping you'll help transform other families' lives too." That night, after Jasper was asleep, Autumn and Owen talked about the foundation, the programs they could develop, the families they could help, the ripple effect of supporting parents who were drowning in the same overwhelm Autumn had felt for years. "I never thought my struggle could become something meaningful for others," Autumn admitted. "I just thought I was surviving." "That's exactly what makes you qualified," Owen said. "You survived. You kept Jasper thriving despite impossible circumstances. You never gave up on him or yourself. That's not just survival, that's expertise." They made love that night for the first time, slow and tender, a physical manifestation of the emotional intimacy they had been building. Afterward, lying tangled together on Autumn's pull-out couch, Owen traced the stretch marks on her stomach, the physical evidence of carrying Jasper. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "Every part of you, every scar and struggle and moment of strength." Autumn felt tears slip down her temples. "I never thought I'd let anyone see me like this again. Vulnerable. Needing someone. Needing isn't weakness." Owen kissed her softly. "It's trust, and I'm honored you trust me." April brought spring and new growth, both literal and metaphorical. The butterfly garden Owen and Jasper had planted on the balcony began to sprout, milkweed pushing through soil, the promise of monarchs to come. Autumn's book was in final production. The foundation was taking shape, and Autumn realized, with dawning wonder, that she was happy. Not the desperate, grasping happiness of someone trying to convince themselves things were okay, but genuine, deep-rooted happiness, the kind that came from feeling seen and valued and supported. She and Owen still had their moments of friction. Arguments about boundaries and money and how much help was too much, but they worked through them, with conversation and compromise and the commitment to keep choosing each other even when it was hard. One Saturday in late April, they took Jasper to the Butterfly Pavilion for the first time since his birthday 6 months ago. So much had changed since that day. Then Owen had been a stranger bearing gifts. Now, he was family. Jasper ran ahead, eager to see if the new butterflies had emerged. Owen caught Autumn's hand, slowing her pace. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. Autumn's heart jumped. Not yet, she thought. We're not ready yet. It's too soon. But what he pulled out wasn't a ring. It was a small velvet pouch. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet. A butterfly charm dangled from it, wings spread in flight. "It's beautiful," Autumn breathed. "It was Claire's," Owen said quietly. "She wore it during treatment, said it reminded her to believe in transformation even when everything felt hopeless. I want you to have it, Owen." "I can't. This is too precious." "She'd want you to have it." Owen's voice was thick with emotion. "You've given me back something I thought I lost when Claire died. Hope, purpose, the belief that beautiful things can emerge from broken places. Please, take it." Autumn held out her wrist, let him clasp the bracelet. The butterfly charm caught the light, delicate and strong at once. "Thank you," she whispered, "for trusting me with this, with her memory. Thank you for teaching me how to live again." They found Jasper in the center of the pavilion, surrounded by butterflies. A newly emerged monarch had landed on his outstretched finger. He stood perfectly still, barely breathing, wonder transforming his serious face into something luminous. "Mama, look," he whispered. "Danaus plexipus just emerged. You can tell because the wings are still soft." "It's perfect," Autumn said, camera already out to capture the moment. Owen stood beside her, his arm around her waist. "Look at him. He's in his element." They watched Jasper, this extraordinary child who saw the world through a different lens, who found magic in scientific names and migration patterns and the precise structure of wing scales, who had taught both of them more about resilience and joy and living authentically than any book or seminar ever could. "He's going to change the world someday," Owen said softly. "He already has," Autumn replied. "He changed mine, and now he's changing yours." The butterfly on Jasper's finger tested its wings, fluttering gently. Then it took flight, rising toward the glass dome where sunlight streamed through. Jasper watched it go with satisfaction. "Successful emergence," he announced. "Complete metamorphosis achieved." Autumn caught Owen's eye, saw her own thought reflected there. Wasn't that what they were all doing? Emerging, transforming, learning to fly despite wings that felt too new and fragile. The following week brought the finalized details for Autumn's book launch. Blackwell Publishing had planned an event at the Science Museum's Butterfly Pavilion. Fitting, full circle. Where this had all begun, they would celebrate what it had become. Autumn was nervous. The thought of standing in front of people, claiming space as an artist, again after years of making herself small, it terrified her. But Owen and Jasper both encouraged her. "You deserve this," Owen kept saying. "Your work deserves to be celebrated." The night before the launch, Autumn couldn't sleep. She lay on the pull-out couch, now shared with Owen most nights, staring at the ceiling. Beside her, Owen stirred. "Can't sleep. Too nervous. What if nobody comes? What if they come and hate the book? What if I mess up the reading?" Owen propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her in the dim light filtering through the window. "Do you remember what Jasper said about metamorphosis? About how the caterpillar has to completely dissolve before becoming a butterfly?" Autumn nodded. "You've been in the chrysalis, Autumn. These past years of struggle and survival and choosing Jasper over your dreams, that was the dissolution. But you were never gone. Your imaginal discs, your artist self, It was always there, waiting for the right time to reorganize, to emerge. He traced her cheekbone gently. Tomorrow isn't about proving anything. It's about showing the world what I've known since the moment I saw your work. You're extraordinary, and your art brings hope to people who desperately need it. What if I fail? Then we'll figure it out together. But Autumn, you've already succeeded. You raised an incredible child alone. You survived impossible circumstances. You kept creating beauty even when everything was hard. The book launch is just a celebration of what's already true. You're an artist. You always have been. His words settled something in her chest. The fear didn't disappear, but it became manageable. Because he was right. She had already survived the hard part. Everything else was just details. The next morning dawned clear and beautiful. May sunshine warming the world. Perfect butterfly weather, Jasper announced with satisfaction. The pavilion was transformed for the event. Autumn's illustrations blown up and displayed on easels. Copies of Metamorphosis, A Butterfly's Journey stacked on tables. Chairs arranged for readings. Press photographers setting up equipment. More people came than Autumn had dared hope. Families with neurodivergent children who had heard about the book through therapy networks. Local teachers and librarians. Book reviewers. Curious community members. And there, in the front row, Margot from Chapter and Canvas, beaming with pride. Autumn's hands shook as she took the podium, but then she saw Jasper sitting between Owen and Kelly, his noise-canceling headphones around, his neck in case he needed them, his serious face focused on her with complete confidence. And Owen, steady and supportive, mouthing, "You've got this." She began to read. Her voice wavered at first, then grew stronger. The words she had written, the story of a caterpillar learning to trust the dissolution, believing in transformation even when everything felt like falling apart. The children in the audience sat rapt. Parents wiped tears. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Jasper covered his ears against the noise, but he was smiling. That huge, rare smile that transformed his whole face. The signing line was long. Person after person telling Autumn what her book meant to them. A mother whose autistic daughter had just been diagnosed, desperately needing hope. A teacher who planned to use the book to teach about differences and transformation. A grandmother whose grandson loved butterflies the way Jasper did. But the moment that broke Autumn came midway through the line. A young woman, maybe 23, approached with a baby on her hip. She looked exhausted, overwhelmed, familiar. "I can't afford to buy the book today," the woman said quietly, "but I wanted to tell you it's beautiful. My son, he's almost 2. They're saying he might be autistic, and I'm so scared. I'm alone, and I don't know how to do this." Autumn saw herself in this woman, saw the fear and determination and desperate love. "Wait here," she told her. Autumn found Owen at the edge of the room, watching the proceedings with quiet pride. "I need to buy a book," she said. "You wrote the book. You don't need to buy it. Not for me." Or her. Autumn gestured toward the young mother. "She reminds me of who I was 8 years ago. Alone and terrified, and needing someone to tell her it would be okay." Understanding dawned in Owen's eyes. He pulled out his wallet, handed Autumn several bills. "Buy her a few copies. And this." He handed her a business card for the Claire Blackwell Foundation. "Tell her she's not alone." Autumn returned to the young woman. "Here," she said, handing her a wrapped book. "Gift from one single mom to another. You're going to be okay. It won't always be easy, but you're going to find your rhythm. You're going to learn your child's language. You're going to discover strengths you didn't know you had." The woman started crying. "I can't accept this. You can, and you will, because someone helped me when I needed it most. Now I get to pass it forward." She handed the woman the foundation card. "When this launches in a few months, reach out. We're here to help." After the event, packing up in the golden late afternoon light, Jasper tugged at Autumn's hand. "Mama, that was good. People liked your book. Did you like my book?" "I already knew all the butterfly facts," Jasper said with his characteristic honesty. But I like the part about transformation, about how you have to trust the process even when you're in the soup stage. Pretty wise for an 8-year-old, Owen observed, joining them. I'm a very smart 8-year-old, Jasper corrected matter-of-factly. They drove home as a unit, Jasper chattering from the back seat about which species of butterfly he had. Observed, Owen's hand finding Autumn's across the console, the spring evening soft and full of promise. That night, after Jasper was asleep, Owen and Autumn stood on the small balcony. The butterfly garden was blooming, milkweed and coneflowers, native plants to support pollinators, small but meaningful. Today was perfect, Autumn said, leaning into Owen's embrace. You were perfect. Owen kissed the top of her head. I was so proud of you. I couldn't have done any of this without you. The book, the confidence, the belief that I could be more than just surviving. You were always more than surviving. I just helped you see what was already there. Autumn turned in his arms, looked up at his face in the dim light. I love you. I know I've said it before, but today, watching you with Jasper, seeing how you've changed our entire lives, I need you to know. I love you more than I thought I could love anyone. You're not just my partner. You're my best friend, my biggest supporter, the person who saw me when I felt invisible. Owen's eyes glistened. I love you too, both of you. You've given me a family again. Purpose, a reason to build something that matters beyond profit margins. He reached into his pocket, and this time, Autumn knew what was coming. She had known since the bracelet, since the foundation announcement, since every small gesture of commitment and care. Owen knelt on the narrow balcony, surrounded by butterfly plants and city lights, holding a small velvet box. Autumn haze, Owen said, his voice steady despite the emotion she could see in his eyes. 4 months ago, I walked into a bookstore looking for nothing in particular. What I found was everything I'd been searching for without knowing it. An artist whose work had comforted my dying sister, a woman whose strength and dignity reminded me what really matters, and a remarkable child who taught me that different kinds of minds see different kinds of magic. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, delicate platinum with a butterfly design. Sapphires formed the wings, each stone catching the light. You've taught me that transformation isn't just for butterflies, that people can emerge from darkness into something extraordinary. That love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up, day after day, through hospital vigils and meltdowns and deadlines and everyday beautiful ordinary moments. A tear slipped down Autumn's cheek. I promise to show up, Autumn, to honor Jasper's needs and your dreams, to be the partner you deserve, to remember that we're building something together, not me rescuing you or you needing me, but both of us choosing each other every single day. He took a breath. Will you marry me? Autumn looked at this man who had appeared in her life when she had stopped believing in second chances, who had seen her worth when she could barely see it herself, who loved her son not despite his differences but because of his unique beauty, who had transformed from a stranger in a bookstore into family. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, absolutely yes. Owen stood, slipping the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He paid attention to details. It was one of the 1,000 things she loved about him. They kissed as the spring evening deepened into night. Somewhere in Mexico, monarchs were making their way north. Somewhere in the apartment behind them, Jasper slept peacefully, secure, in the knowledge that his family was growing, not shrinking. Somewhere in the universe, Claire was smiling. At least, Autumn liked to think so. When they finally pulled apart, Owen was grinning. Should we tell Jasper in the morning? Actually, Autumn said, a thought occurring to her. I think you should ask him too. He's part of this decision. Owen's expression softened. You're right. Tomorrow, we'll tell him together. The next morning, Jasper emerged from his bedroom at exactly 7:15, his usual wake time. He had routines that anchored his days, and the family had learned to respect them. Breakfast happened at 7:30. Never earlier, never later. But today, Autumn and Owen were both already up, waiting in the small living room with barely contained excitement. Jasper, Owen said as the boy padded toward the kitchen. Can we talk to you for a minute before breakfast? Jasper stopped, his expression wary. Talking before breakfast was outside routine. Is something wrong? Nothing's wrong, Autumn assured him quickly. Something's very right. We just want to share some news with you. Jasper sat on the couch, hands folded in his lap, waiting with that particular stillness he adopted when processing new information. You know I love your mama very much, Owen began, using the same words. He had practiced in the car driving to that first birthday celebration. Last night, I asked her to marry me. And she said yes. Jasper's eyes widened slightly. Marriage means you'll live together all the time? Not just visiting? That's right, Owen nodded. It means I'll be here permanently, part of your family, officially. Jasper processed this. Will you be my dad then? I'd like to be, if that's okay with you. Owen's voice was gentle. I'll never try to replace your biological father, but I'd be honored to be a dad to you. To be someone you can always count on. What would I call you? Whatever feels right to you. Dad, Owen, Mr. Owen, you get to decide. Jasper considered this with his characteristic seriousness. Then, with the profound simplicity only children possess, he said, I think Dad is good. Mr. Owen is too formal for family. Owen's eyes filled with tears. He pulled Jasper into a careful hug, respecting the boy's need for controlled touch. Thank you, he whispered. That's the greatest honor anyone's ever given me. When's breakfast? Jasper asked, pulling back. It's 7:28. We're behind schedule. Autumn laughed, the sound bright with joy and relief. Right now, baby. Let's get breakfast. As Jasper headed to the kitchen, satisfied with the information he had, received and ready to return to routine, Owen caught Autumn's hand. The butterfly ring sparkled on her finger. That went well, he said. Better than well. Autumn squeezed his hand. We're really doing this. We're becoming a family. We already are a family. Owen kissed her softly. This just makes it official. The following weeks brought wedding planning, though calling it planning was generous. Both Autumn and Owen wanted something simple, meaningful, focused on what mattered rather than expensive displays. They chose the Butterfly Pavilion at the Science Museum, full circle from where they had met as adult and child, where Jasper had first begun to trust Owen, where Autumn's book had launched. It felt right. Late August for the date, migration season, when monarchs would be gathering strength for their journeys south. 40 guests, just the people who mattered. Margot, from the bookstore. Kelly, Autumn's best friend. Owen's mother, Margaret, who had flown in from Arizona and immediately loved Autumn with a fierceness that reminded Owen of how she had loved Claire. Jasper's therapists, a few close colleagues from Blackwell Publishing, people who had supported them through the dissolution and were here to witness the emergence. Jasper would be ring bearer, with accommodations built in, noise-canceling headphones available, a quiet room nearby if he needed to decompress. The ceremony kept short to respect his processing needs. Owen had researched and prepared with the same thoroughness he brought to billion-dollar negotiations, because this mattered more. But before the wedding, there was work to do. The Claire Blackwell Foundation was launching in June. Autumn had spent the past month helping design programs, consulting with therapists and educators and, most importantly, other parents raising neurodivergent children. The foundation's approach was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of deciding what families needed and imposing services, they asked, what would actually help? What do you wish existed? What would make the difference between surviving and thriving? The answers were illuminating. Not cure or fix or normalize, but support, understanding, respite care so exhausted parents could sleep, therapy funding without insurance battles, educational advocates who knew the law, sensory-friendly spaces where kids could exist without judgment, arts programs that celebrated special interests instead of trying to redirect them, support groups where parents could be honest about the hard parts without being shamed. The foundation built programs around those needs, real needs, not performative charity. One afternoon in early June, Autumn sat in the foundation's new office space, reviewing program applications. A single mother in Vermont whose autistic daughter loved astronomy needed funding for a specialized summer camp. Approved. A father in rural Maine struggling to afford occupational therapy for his sensory-seeking son. Approved. A grandmother raising her nonverbal grandson who needed an AAC device insurance wouldn't cover. Approved. Each application was a story. A family fighting battles Autumn knew intimately. And now, impossibly, she had resources to help. Owen found her there at 6 in the evening, surrounded by files, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, crossing to her side. "Nothing's wrong." Autumn gestured at the applications. "Everything's right. Look at this. We're helping 73 families in the first month alone. 73 kids who'll get the support they need. 73 parents who won't have to choose between therapy and electricity." Owen pulled her close. "This is Claire's legacy. And yours. You're transforming your pain into purpose. I just keep thinking about who I was a year ago, standing in Margot's bookstore, canceling Jasper's birthday book, feeling like I was failing at everything. If someone had told me I'd be here now, running a foundation, engaged to you, thriving instead of just surviving, I wouldn't have believed them. Believe it." Owen tilted her face up to meet his eyes. "You deserve every bit of this. You worked for it, fought for it, never gave up, even when giving up would have been easier." The foundation's official launch event was held on a warm June evening. The venue was packed. Families who had already been helped by the programs, donors who wanted to contribute, press covering the story. And there, in the center of it all, Jasper in his role as expert advisor, explaining to anyone who would listen the precise differences between various butterfly species and why special interests should be supported, not discouraged. Autumn watched him, this child who had once been told he was too much, too different, too difficult. Now, he was confident, valued, celebrated for exactly who he was. Owen approached the podium to give opening remarks. "My sister Claire believed that everyone has something valuable to contribute, that different minds see different possibilities. She worked with neurodivergent children and said they taught her more than any textbook ever could. When she died, I wanted to honor that belief, to create something that would support families raising extraordinary kids." He gestured to Autumn. "But I needed someone who had lived it, who understood what families actually need versus what sounds good in a mission statement. Autumn Hayes, our artistic director and my fiancée, has transformed this foundation from an idea into a lifeline. She's used her own experience to build programs that make real differences in real lives." The crowd applauded. Autumn felt her cheeks warm. "And this young man," Owen continued, gesturing to Jasper, "our expert advisor Jasper Hayes has reminded all of us that expertise comes in many forms, that passion and deep knowledge should be celebrated, that the world needs people who see details others miss." Jasper, comfortable with the attention in a way he wouldn't have been a year ago, waved solemnly at the crowd. The evening was a success by every measure. Donations exceeded projections. Media coverage was extensive and thoughtful. Families connected with each other, building the support networks the foundation wanted to foster. But for Autumn, the real success came later. After the event, as they were packing up, a woman approached. She was maybe 35, holding the hand of a boy around 10 who was humming and rocking gently. "I wanted to thank you," the woman said to Autumn. "Your foundation approved funding for my son's music therapy. It's the first thing that's really helped him with emotional regulation. For the first time in years, I feel like we're not drowning, like someone actually understands." Autumn took the woman's hand. "I understand. I've been where you are, and I promise you're not alone anymore." After the woman left, Autumn turned to Owen. "This is what it's all about, not the big donations or press coverage. That moment, that mother feeling seen. That's why we do this," Owen agreed. "One family at a time, one child at a time, making the world a little more accommodating, a little more understanding, a little more kind." Now I'm going to pause here for a moment, because this is important. If you're watching this and you're a parent struggling to support a child who experiences the world differently, I want you to hear this. You are not failing. Your child is not broken. You're doing the hardest, most important work there is, and you deserve support. So drop a comment, Tell me where you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Dr. Phillips. Let's build a community right here, because no one should have to fight these battles alone. Now let me tell you about the wedding, because what happened that day will touch your soul. Late August arrived with perfect weather, warm but not hot, clear skies, the kind of day that felt like a gift. Autumn woke in her apartment. The last morning she would wake here as an unmarried woman. Owen had spent the night at a hotel, observing the traditional separation before the ceremony. Kelly arrived at 8 with coffee and pastries and the energy of someone determined to make this day perfect. "How are you feeling?" Kelly asked, studying Autumn's face. "Terrified, excited, grateful, like I might throw up." Autumn laughed shakily, all of it at once. "That's normal." Kelly hugged her. "You're allowed to be nervous. You're making a huge commitment." "I'm not nervous about marrying him," Autumn clarified. "I'm nervous about being the center of attention, about people looking at me, about somehow messing this up." "You won't mess it up." Kelly was firm. "You're going to put on that beautiful dress, marry the man who adores you, and celebrate with people who love you. That's it. Simple." The dress was simple too. Autumn had chosen a cream-colored tea-length dress with delicate lace sleeves. Nothing extravagant, but when she put it on, Kelly gasped. "Autumn, you're stunning." Autumn looked at herself in the mirror. For the first time in years, she saw herself as beautiful, not despite the stress lines or the stretch marks or the exhaustion still visible in her eyes, but as a whole person, someone who had survived and was now thriving. Jasper appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his navy suit. Owen had taken him shopping, letting him choose fabrics based on texture and comfort rather than style. The result was sharp but soft, formal but sensory-friendly. "Mama, you look pretty," Jasper said, "like a butterfly that just emerged, still wet but already beautiful." "Only you would compare your mother to a wet butterfly on her wedding day," Kelly laughed. "But sweetie, that's actually perfect." "Are you ready for today?" Autumn asked, kneeling to Jasper's level, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "I have the rings in a special box. I practiced walking slowly. I have my headphones in my pocket, in case it gets too loud." Jasper recited his preparation like a checklist. "I'm ready." At the Butterfly Pavilion, the transformation was stunning. Simple white chairs arranged in a semicircle, Autumn's illustrations displayed on easels, butterfly motifs everywhere, subtle and beautiful. White flowers and greenery, and throughout the space, hundreds of living butterflies dancing in the air. Owen stood at the front with the officiant, his best friend and business partner Marcus beside him as best man. When he saw Autumn enter, his expression transformed. Pure joy, wonder, love so evident that several guests started crying immediately. Autumn walked alone down the aisle. She had considered asking someone to give her away, but the symbolism felt wrong. She wasn't being transferred from one person to another. She was choosing this, walking into this new life of her own volition. Jasper walked beside her, carrying the ring box with intense concentration. When they reached the front, he handed the box to Marcus with visible relief, then took his seat in the front row between Kelly and Owen's mother, Margaret. The officiant, a friend of Owen's who had known Claire, began with words about transformation and second chances, about how the people gathered here had witnessed Owen and Autumn's individual journeys and were now celebrating their joining. Then came the vows. Owen went first. "Autumn, 6 months ago I walked into a bookstore searching for rare books and found something infinitely more valuable. You showed me that transformation is possible at any age, that it's never too late for second chances, that love doesn't have to be complicated or painful. It can be simple, showing up, listening, choosing each other daily." His voice wavered slightly. "I promise to show up for you and Jasper, through meltdowns and deadlines, and hospital visits, and every ordinary beautiful moment in between. I promise to honor your independence while offering support, to celebrate your art and your strength and your fierce dedication to our son." He glanced at Jasper, then back to Autumn. "I promise to keep learning, to keep growing, to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me. I promise to love you, not just today, but every day forward. Through whatever transformations come, you are my best decision, my greatest adventure, my home. Autumn was crying before she even began her own vows. But she steadied herself, looked into Owen's eyes, and spoke from her heart. Owen, when you first approached me about illustrating a book, I was suspicious, defensive, certain there had to be a catch because nothing good ever happened without cost. You proved me wrong. You showed me that some people stay. That help doesn't have to come with strings. That I could trust again without losing myself. She took a shaky breath. You love my son, not as an obligation, but as a privilege. You see his brilliance where others see deficits. You've never once made me feel less than because of our circumstances. Instead, you've celebrated our strength, our resilience, our unique family dynamic. I promise to keep letting you in, to fight my instinct to protect myself by pushing away, to accept help with grace instead of shame. I promise to support your dreams while pursuing my own, to build a partnership based on equality and respect and genuine, like as much as love. She smiled through tears. I promise to keep transforming with you, to emerge from whatever crystallizes life builds around us, to fly with you, today and always. You are my unexpected miracle, my second chance at believing in happy endings. My family. The officiant pronounced them married. Owen kissed Autumn with such tenderness that the crowd collectively sighed. When they pulled apart, both crying and smiling, applause erupted. And then Jasper did something unexpected. He stood from his seat, walked to where Autumn and Owen stood, and wrapped his arms around both of them. Public affection, initiated by him, was rare. The gesture spoke volumes. We're a family now, he announced. Officially. Yes, we are, Owen agreed, his voice thick with emotion. The reception was casual. Food stations instead of formal dinner. Music kept at moderate volume. A quiet room available for anyone who needed sensory breaks. Speeches from Margaret and Kelly and Marcus, each one touching on transformation, resilience, and chosen family. But the moment that would become legend, the moment that would be replayed in family stories for years, came during the butterfly release ceremony. Owen had arranged for the release of dozens of monarch butterflies, all bred ethically for this purpose. As he and Autumn opened the special enclosure, butterflies emerged in a cloud of orange and black wings. The symbolism was almost too perfect. Transformation, migration, beauty, taking flight. One butterfly landed on Jasper's outstretched hand. He stood perfectly still, his serious face alight with wonder. Look, he said quietly. Danas plexippus, female based on wing pattern, probably ready to begin migration soon. Autumn moved to photograph the moment. But Owen stopped her gently. Just watch, he said. Some moments are for experiencing, not documenting. So they stood together, husband and wife, watching their son commune with a butterfly, while wedding guests looked on with tears in their eyes. The late summer sun slanted through the pavilion glass. The world felt, for that moment, absolutely perfect. After the butterfly flew away, the reception continued. Dancing, laughter, joy. Jasper made it until 8 before the stimulation became too much. Autumn took him to the quiet room, helped him decompress with his weighted blanket and noise-canceling headphones. I had a good time, Jasper said, after 20 minutes of silence. But I'm ready to go home now. That's okay, baby. Autumn kissed his forehead. We can leave whenever you want. But Owen appeared in the doorway. What if home came to you? He gestured outside where a car was waiting. Our flight doesn't leave until tomorrow. Tonight, I thought the three of us could go to the apartment, order pizza, watch butterfly documentaries. Low-key, just us. That sounds perfect, Jasper said with visible relief. So, they left their own wedding reception early, and it was perfect. Exactly right for who they were as a family. Not traditional, not conventional, but authentic. That night, in the apartment that would soon be vacated as they moved to a new place together. The three of them sat on the couch watching a documentary about monarch migration. Jasper between his parents, a weighted blanket across his lap, explaining facts the narrator hadn't mentioned. This is my favorite part of today. Autumn whispered to Owen over Jasper's head. Mine too, Owen agreed. The following day, they flew to Costa Rica for a week-long honeymoon. Just the three of them. They visited butterfly conservatories and cloud forests. Jasper cataloged 53 new species. Autumn painted watercolors of the landscapes. Owen took a full week away from his phone and his company, and just existed as husband and father. One afternoon, watching Jasper examine a blue morpho with intense focus, Autumn leaned into Owen's embrace. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, she admitted, for this to fall apart somehow. It won't, Owen said with certainty, because we built this on truth, on showing up through hard things, on choosing each other with clear eyes. That's not the kind of foundation that crumbles, but what if I mess up? What if my issues, my trauma, my defensive instincts damage what we have? Owen turned her to face him. Then we'll work through it. Together. That's what marriage is. Not perfection, just commitment to keep showing up, even when it's hard. They returned home to their new life. A modest house Owen had purchased, larger than the apartment, but not ostentatious. 3 bedrooms, a dedicated studio for Autumn, a sensory room for Jasper with special lighting and textured walls and organized storage for his collections. A garden they would fill with butterfly-friendly plants. Home, Jasper declared the first time he walked through the door. This is home. September brought new routines. Jasper started 3rd grade at a school with a strong special education program. Autumn worked from her home studio, balancing illustration deadlines with foundation responsibilities. Owen split his time between the Boston office and working from home, prioritizing family dinners and bedtime routines over late-night work sessions. It wasn't always smooth. There were arguments, days when Autumn's trauma responses kicked in and she withdrew, defensive and prickly. Days when Owen defaulted to solving problems with money instead of presence. Days when Jasper had meltdowns and both parents felt helpless and inadequate. But they worked through it, with communication, with therapy, both individual and couples, with the commitment to keep choosing each other even when emotions ran high. One particularly hard evening in October, after a brutal day where Jasper had a meltdown at school, Autumn had a foundation crisis, and Owen faced a major business decision, they stood in the kitchen at 9 p.m., surrounded by dishes and unfinished homework and general chaos. Owen looked at Autumn. Autumn looked at Owen, and they both started laughing, not because anything was funny, but because this messy, imperfect, overwhelming reality was what they had chosen, and they would choose it again, every time. This is marriage, Owen said, still laughing, not the wedding day. This, dirty dishes and exhausted kids and choosing each other anyway. I love this, Autumn said, surprising herself with the truth of it. I love our chaotic, beautiful real life. Me too. Owen pulled her close, kissing her despite the stress and exhaustion. Me too. The foundation continued to grow. By November, they were supporting over 200 families across New England. The programs were making real differences. Parents reported feeling less isolated. Children were receiving therapies that transformed their daily functioning. Schools were implementing better accommodations based on foundation training. And the ripple effects were extraordinary. Families helped by the foundation were paying it forward, starting support groups in their communities, advocating for policy changes, creating sensory-friendly spaces in libraries and museums. The transformation was spreading. One December afternoon, Autumn received a letter that made her cry. It was from the young woman she had given a book to at the launch event, the single mother with a toddler who might be autistic. Dear Ms. Hayes, the letter read, you probably don't remember me, but 6 months ago, you gave me your book and told me I'd be okay. I wanted you to know you were right. My son was diagnosed with autism in July. It was hard to hear, but also clarifying. We started therapies through your foundation support. He's making amazing progress, but more than that, I'm making progress. I'm accepting help. I'm connecting with other parents. I'm learning that different doesn't mean less. You told me I would find my rhythm and discover strengths I didn't know I had. You were right. I'm pursuing my teaching degree while my son is in therapy. The Foundation's childcare support makes that possible. I'm building a life I'm proud of, just like you did. Thank you for seeing me that day, for helping me believe transformation was possible. I'm in the soup stage right now, but I trust the imaginal discs know what they're doing. Autumn showed the letter to Owen that evening. This is why we do it, she said. This letter. This woman. These individual transformations. Claire would be so proud, Owen said quietly. Of the foundation, of you, of what we're building together. Speaking of building, Autumn said, her hand moving unconsciously to her stomach. There's something I need to tell you. Owen's eyes widened. Are you? I'm pregnant. Autumn watched his face carefully. I know we hadn't planned this yet. We've only been married 3 months, and with Jasper's needs and the foundation and everything else, the timing isn't perfect. Owen pulled her into his arms. The timing is exactly right. We're ready. We can do this. Are you sure? Autumn's old fears surfaced. A baby is a lot of work, and if the baby is neurodivergent like Jasper, it's even more complex. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed or trapped. Owen cupped her face in his hands. Listen to me. Whatever this baby needs, we'll handle it. Together, just like we handle everything. I'm not going anywhere, Autumn. Not because of work or stress or challenges. I chose this family. I choose it every day, they told Jasper after dinner the next evening. His response was characteristically practical. Where will the baby sleep? We only have 3 bedrooms. The baby will share with you at first, Autumn explained. Eventually, we might need to move to a bigger house. Jasper considered this. Will the baby like butterflies? We don't know yet, Owen said. The baby will have their own interests. Maybe butterflies, maybe something else entirely. I could teach the baby about butterflies, Jasper offered. I'm a very good teacher. You are indeed, Autumn agreed, hugging him close. The pregnancy brought its own challenges. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Exhaustion, the anxiety of wondering if this baby would also be neurodivergent, and how they would manage 2 children with potentially different needs. But it also brought joy. Jasper's excitement as the pregnancy progressed, his careful questions about fetal development, cataloged with the same precision he brought to butterfly facts. Owen's protective hovering, attending every appointment, reading parenting books with intense focus. And for Autumn, the pregnancy brought healing. Her pregnancy with Jasper had been overshadowed by an unsupportive partner and financial stress. This time, she was surrounded by love and support. She could actually enjoy the experience. In March, Autumn's second book released, The Monarch's Journey, a story of transformation. It built on the success of the first, but went deeper, exploring not just physical metamorphosis, but emotional transformation. The reviews were glowing. Sales exceeded projections. Schools were adopting it for social-emotional learning curricula. At the book launch, 7 months pregnant and glowing, Autumn spoke about the parallels between butterfly metamorphosis and human transformation. We all go through chrysalis stages, she told the audience. Times when everything we knew dissolves. When we're broken down to our most basic components, those stages are terrifying, painful. We can't see what we're becoming. We just know we're not what we were. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling the baby kick. But if we trust the process, if we believe in our own imaginal discs, we emerge transformed. Not better than we were, just different, evolved, ready for the next stage of our journey. The crowd applauded, but Autumn's attention was drawn to a young girl in the front row, maybe 9 years old, stemming with a fidget toy and listening with rapt attention. After the reading, the girl approached. I liked your book, she said, not making eye contact. The part about how the caterpillar doesn't know it's going to be a butterfly. It just has to trust. Do you feel like you're in a chrysalis stage? Autumn asked gently. The girl nodded. I'm autistic. Sometimes it's really hard. People say I should try to be more normal. But I don't know how to be different than I am. Autumn knelt down, awkward with her pregnant belly. Can I tell you a secret? Normal is overrated. My son Jasper is autistic too. He used to worry about being too different, but then he realized that his different brain lets him see things other people miss. His special interests make him an expert. His honesty makes him trustworthy. His differences are actually his strengths. The girl looked up, meeting Autumn's eyes briefly. Really, you're in your chrysalis stage. It's hard right now, but you're not becoming someone else. You're becoming more yourself, and that's perfect. The girl's mother, standing nearby, was crying. "Thank you," she whispered. She needed to hear that. After they left, Owen wrapped his arm around Autumn's shoulders. "You're changing lives, one person at a time." "We're changing lives," Autumn corrected. "This is our work, our family's purpose." April brought Jasper's 9th birthday. This time, there was no canceled cake. Instead, an elaborate butterfly-themed celebration at their home. Jasper's friends from school, his therapy group, kids from the Foundation's programs, a house full of neurodivergent children being themselves without judgment or pressure to be different. Owen and Autumn watched the chaos with tired smiles, sensory breaks being taken as needed, STEM toys scattered everywhere, conversations about special interests conducted with intense focus. This was their community, their people. "Happy birthday, buddy," Owen said, sitting beside Jasper during a quiet moment. "This is my best birthday ever," Jasper declared. "Even better than when you first came to the Butterfly Pavilion." "Why's that?" "Because now you're my dad forever, not just visiting." Staying. Owen had to look away, overcome with emotion. "Forever," he agreed. "Absolutely forever." In May, their daughter was born. A May baby, arriving during spring migration season. They named her Clara, after Claire, but spelled differently. A tribute, but not a replacement. Clara was neurotypical, the doctors said after early assessments. But Autumn and Owen had learned that typical or atypical mattered less than loved and supported. Whatever Clara needed, they would provide. Jasper was fascinated by his baby sister. He would sit beside her bassinet, explaining butterfly facts in his serious voice. "She can't understand yet," Autumn said gently. "She will eventually," Jasper replied with confidence. "I'll teach her." The first months with a newborn were exhausting. Autumn was breastfeeding and sleep-deprived. Owen was juggling work and night wakings. Jasper was adjusting to no longer being the only child. The house was chaotic. But it was their chaos, their beautiful, messy, imperfect family. One particularly hard night in June, Clara wouldn't stop crying. Autumn had tried everything. Feeding, changing, rocking, singing. Nothing worked. She sat in the nursery at 3 a.m., tears streaming down her face, feeling like a failure. Owen found her there, took Clara gently, walked the hallway, humming off-key, while Autumn collapsed into bed for 3 precious hours of sleep. When she woke, she found him asleep in the rocking chair, Clara peaceful on his chest. This is partnership, she realized. Not grand gestures, just showing up at 3 a.m., taking the shift when your partner is breaking, choosing each other through exhaustion and crying babies, and the beautiful, terrible work of building a family. By Clara's first birthday, the family had found their rhythm. Jasper was thriving in 4th grade. The foundation was supporting over 500 families. Autumn's 3rd book was in production. Owen had promoted a brilliant VP who managed day-to-day operations so he could work from home more. They weren't perfect. They still argued, still had hard days, still struggled sometimes with the complexities of neurodivergent parenting and work-life balance and marriage maintenance. But they were committed to each other, to their kids, to the messy, beautiful work of transformation. One Saturday in late summer, almost 2 years after the wedding, they visited the Butterfly Pavilion, the place where so much of their story had unfolded. Jasper, now 9.5, explained butterfly anatomy to Clara, who listened with toddler attention span. Autumn and Owen sat on a bench, hands intertwined, watching their children. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" Autumn asked. "Your first time meeting Jasper. I was so nervous. I remember thinking I'd never seen a child more in his element," Owen replied, "and wondering if I'd be allowed into your lives. And now look at us." Autumn gestured to the scene before them, A family. Actually, genuinely, a family. The best family, Owen agreed. Not despite our challenges, because we chose each other through them. A newly emerged monarch landed on Jasper's outstretched hand. Clara squealed with delight. Jasper immediately launched into explanation mode, his serious face animated with passion. Successful emergence, he announced, using the phrase that had become family shorthand for transformation completed. Metamorphosis achieved. Autumn and Owen looked at each other and smiled, because wasn't that what they had all done? Emerged from their various chrysalises. Jasper, from the confusion of early childhood into confident boyhood. Autumn, from survival mode into thriving. Owen, from grief into joy. All of them together from separate individuals into a family unit. Now, before I bring this story to a close, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't just a story about a billionaire helping a struggling single mother. That's how it started. But what it became was so much more profound. It's about seeing and being seen, about transformation requiring dissolution, about trust after trauma, about building families through choice and commitment rather than just biology. If this story has touched you, if you see yourself in any of these characters, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs hope. And comment where you're watching from, or just tell me I'm with you, Dr. Phillips. Because stories like this matter. They remind us that transformation is always possible. Now let me tell you what happened next, because the ripple effects of their story reached further than any of them imagined. 2 years after Clara's birth, the documentary that had been filming their journey finally aired. Metamorphosis, a love story, premiered on a major streaming platform. It wasn't just about romance. It was about transformation, about systems of support, about what becomes possible when we see each other's humanity and respond with compassion instead of judgment. The response was overwhelming. The foundation received thousands of applications. Donations poured in. Other organizations started modeling programs after theirs. Politicians began discussing better support for neurodivergent individuals and their families. But more than the big changes, there were small ones. Individual transformations. Parents reaching out to share their own stories. Autistic adults thanking Autumn and Owen for portraying neurodivergence as difference rather than deficit. Teachers implementing new strategies. Communities creating sensory-friendly spaces. One message came from a man in his 40s. "I'm autistic, but wasn't diagnosed until adulthood," he wrote. "I spent my whole life thinking I was broken. Watching your family, seeing how you celebrate Jasper's differences, it's helped me accept myself. I'm pursuing diagnosis now, starting therapy, learning to accommodate my own needs instead of constantly masking. Your story gave me permission to be myself. Thank you." Autumn read that message to her family at dinner. "This is what it's all about," she said. "Not the fame or the documentary or even the foundation's growth. This, one person feeling seen and choosing self-acceptance. We're all just doing our best," Owen said. "Sharing our truth, hoping it helps someone else." By the time Jasper was 11 and Clara was 3, the family had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Jasper was in middle school, navigating social complexities with support from therapists and parents. He had found a small group of friends who appreciated his encyclopedic butterfly knowledge. He was talking about becoming an entomologist when he grew up. Clara was a whirlwind of energy and empathy. She had appointed herself Jasper's protector, fiercely defending him to anyone who suggested he was weird. "He's not weird, he's special," she would announce with 3-year-old certainty. Autumn's book series had expanded to 6 volumes, translated into 23 languages. She received letters daily from parents and children whose lives had been touched by her work. The financial security she had once only dreamed of was now reality. But more than money, she had purpose. Her art mattered. It changed lives. Owen had stepped back from day-to-day operations at Blackwell Publishing, focusing instead on the foundation and family. His business associates had been skeptical at first, but the company was thriving under new leadership, and Owen was happier than he had ever been. "Turns out success isn't just about profit margins," he told a business magazine interviewer. "It's about impact. Legacy. building something that matters beyond your own lifetime. The foundation had grown beyond anything they had imagined, supporting over 2,000 families, funding research into neurodivergent-friendly education models, training educators and medical professionals, creating employment programs for autistic adults. The ripple effects were transforming communities. One particular success story came from a young man named David. He had been supported by the foundation as a teenager, receiving funding for art therapy and social skills support. Now 21, he was a successful graphic designer who volunteered with the foundation, mentoring other neurodivergent youth. "I wouldn't be here without the foundation," David said at a fundraising gala. "Not just the financial support, though that mattered, but the message that I wasn't broken, that my brain worked differently, not incorrectly, that I had value exactly as I was. That belief, that radical acceptance, it saved my life." Autumn watched from the audience, tears streaming down her face. This was Claire's legacy, her belief that everyone has something valuable to contribute, that different minds see different possibilities. After the gala, driving home with her family, Autumn reflected on how far they had come. From that moment in the bookstore, canceled cake and quiet desperation, to this, a family, a foundation, a purpose larger than survival. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Owen hadn't walked into Margot's bookstore that day? Kelly had asked her once. All the time, Autumn had admitted. But I also think, maybe we would have found each other anyway. Maybe when you're meant to transform, the universe provides the catalyst. Whether fate or chance or simply luck, Autumn was grateful. For Owen's presence in that bookstore, for his search for Claire's artist, for his willingness to see her worth when she couldn't see it herself, for every small choice that had led them here. On Jasper's 12th birthday, they returned to chapter and canvas, the bookstore where it had all begun. Margot was still there, older but still sharp, still championing local artists. "I knew that day," Margot said, hugging Autumn tight. "When Owen asked about your portfolio, I knew something was starting." "Did you really?" Autumn laughed. "Because I was skeptical for months." "You were scared," Margot corrected gently. "There's a difference. But you were brave enough to take the chance anyway." They bought Jasper a stack of advanced entomology texts. Clara picked out a picture book about butterflies, insisting Jasper read it to her, even though she had dozens at home. Owen found a first edition of a book Claire had loved. Standing in that bookstore, surrounded by her family, Autumn felt the full weight of transformation. She wasn't the woman who had stood at this counter 5 years ago. That woman had been dissolving, though she hadn't known it. In her chrysalis stage, terrified and alone, this woman, the one she had become, was stronger, not because she never struggled, but because she had learned to accept support, to build community, to believe in her own worth. That evening, at Jasper's birthday dinner, Owen raised his glass. 12 years of Jasper. To our remarkable son who sees beauty in details and teaches us daily about authenticity. To our family. To transformation. To transformation, they echoed, glasses clinking. Jasper, ever practical, added, and to Danaus Plexippus, which completes metamorphosis in about 2 weeks, but lives for up to 8 months. Very efficient. Always bringing it back to butterflies. Clara giggled. Butterflies are important, Jasper said seriously. They prove that complete transformation is possible, that you can dissolve entirely and still emerge as something beautiful. Out of the mouths of babes, Owen murmured. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Autumn and Owen sat in their backyard garden, the butterfly garden they had expanded over the years, milkweed and coneflowers and native plants, a haven for pollinators. "I've been thinking about the documentary," Autumn said, "about all the people who've reached out since it aired. The response has been incredible," Owen agreed. "I want to do more." Autumn turned to face him. "What if we started a speaking tour, visiting schools and community centers, sharing our story not for fame, but to reach people who need to hear it? People in their chrysalis stages who can't see their wings yet." Owen smiled. "I think that's perfect. Claire would love that. And maybe we could film it," Autumn continued, ideas flowing. Create a curriculum. Free resources for families and educators. Make it accessible to people who can't afford conferences or workshops. You're brilliant, Owen said, pulling her close. This is exactly the kind of impact we should be pursuing. Over the next year, they did exactly that. The Metamorphosis Project, they called it. Autumn and Owen traveling to communities across the country, sharing their story, but more importantly, listening to others' stories, creating space for people to share their own transformations. They visited inner-city schools and rural communities, spoke at conferences and church basements, met with parent groups and autistic self-advocates. Each conversation was a thread in a larger tapestry of understanding and acceptance. In a small town in Kansas, a father approached Autumn after a presentation. My son is 8, autistic. I've been so angry about the diagnosis. Angry at the universe for making his life harder. Angry at myself for not knowing how to help. But listening to you talk about Jasper, about celebrating differences instead of mourning normalcy, something shifted. I realized I wasn't angry about my son. I was scared I'd fail him. Autumn took his hand. That fear never completely goes away, but it gets easier. You find your rhythm. You learn his language. You discover that different doesn't mean less. It just means different. The man's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. I needed to hear that from someone who's lived it. These moments, these individual connections, reminded Autumn why they had started this work. Not for acclaim or recognition, but because they had been in the dark, and they wanted to be a light for others. By the time Jasper turned 13 and started high school, he had become an advocate in his own right. He gave presentations at schools about neurodiversity, spoke on panels about the autistic experience, used his voice to educate and challenge misconceptions. Being autistic isn't a tragedy, he told a room full of educators. It's just a different way of experiencing the world. Instead of trying to make us normal, help us thrive as we are, accommodate our needs, celebrate our strengths. Let us be authentically ourselves. The educators listened. Some pushed back, but others had their paradigms shifted, began implementing changes in their classrooms, started seeing neurodivergent students as different rather than deficient. Change happens one mind at a time, Owen said after one particularly challenging presentation where several educators had been resistant. But it is happening, Autumn countered, slowly, imperfectly. But look how different the world is now compared to when Jasper was first diagnosed. We're making progress. On their 5-year wedding anniversary, Owen and Autumn returned to the Butterfly Pavilion. Their tradition, the place where their story had unfolded across multiple chapters. 5 years, Autumn marveled. It feels like forever and yesterday all at once. Best 5 years of my life, Owen said without hesitation. Even the hard parts, maybe especially the hard parts, because we chose each other through them. They watched butterflies dance in the late summer light. Monarchs preparing for migration, the eternal cycle of transformation. Do you think we'll ever stop transforming? Autumn asked. Ever reach a point where we're just done, fully emerged, complete? Owen considered this. I don't think transformation ever stops. We're always becoming, always growing. The caterpillar becomes a butterfly, but the butterfly still has a journey, still has work to do. Migration, reproduction, purpose. So, we're butterflies in flight. Exactly. Still transforming, just in different ways. A monarch landed on Autumn's outstretched hand. She held perfectly still, marveling at the delicate creature. 5 years ago, she had been in her chrysalis, terrified and dissolving. Now she was in flight, not because everything was perfect, but because she had learned to trust the process, to believe in her own imaginal discs, to accept support, to choose love. The butterfly took flight, rising toward the glass dome. Autumn watched it go, then turned to her husband. Ready to keep flying? Always, Owen said, taking her hand. Together, always together. And now we come to the end of this story. But really, it's not an ending at all. It's just a pause in an ongoing journey. Autumn and Owen and Jasper and Clara continue their work. The foundation keeps growing. More families are supported. More lives are changed. The ripple effects expand outward, touching people they'll never meet in places they'll never visit. Because that's how transformation works. It's contagious. One person's emergence gives another person hope. One family's story reminds another family they're not alone. One act of kindness in a bookstore becomes a foundation supporting thousands. So, what's the moral of this story? What's the lesson you're meant to take away? It's this: you are never too broken for transformation. You are never too far gone for second chances. Your struggle doesn't define your worth. Your differences don't diminish your value. You deserve to be seen, supported, celebrated exactly as you are. Maybe you're in your caterpillar stage right now, working hard, eating metaphorical leaves, preparing for something you can't quite see yet. That's okay. Keep going. Maybe you're in the chrysalis, everything dissolving, nothing making sense, terrified because you can't see what you're becoming. Hold on. Your imaginal discs know what they're doing. Trust the process. Maybe you've just emerged, wings still wet, unsure if you can fly. Test them. Flutter gently. You're stronger than you think. Or maybe you're in full flight, migrating toward your purpose. Remember to look back sometimes. See who's still in their chrysalis. Be the reminder that transformation is possible. Be the light in someone else's darkness. We all transform, again and again throughout our lives. Jobs and relationships and identities and beliefs. We dissolve and reorganize and emerge different than we were. It's scary, it's painful, but it's also beautiful. It's how we grow. Autumn Hayes walked into a bookstore to cancel a birthday cake. She walked out having been seen by someone who would change her life. Not because he had money, but because he paid attention. Because he remembered his own mother's struggle and his sister's compassion. Because he chose to act on empathy instead of walking past someone else's pain. You can be that person, the one who sees, the one who acts, the one who reminds someone else they matter. You don't need billions. You just need to pay attention, to care, to show up. And if you're the person standing at the counter right now, metaphorically canceling your birthday cake, struggling alone, wondering if anyone sees you, I see you. Your worth isn't determined by your bank account or your circumstances or your challenges. You are inherently valuable. You deserve support and joy and transformation. Hold on. Your wings are forming, even if you can't see them yet. Trust the imaginal discs. Believe in the process. Accept help when it's offered. And know that somewhere, somehow, your transformation will inspire someone else's. This is Dr. Phillips, and I want to thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. If this story moved you, don't just feel it. Act on it. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm here every week with stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Comment below where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories reach, how many lives they touch. Or just tell me I'm with you, Dr. Phillips, so I know you're out there, listening, feeling, transforming alongside these characters. And finally, do something kind today. See someone who feels invisible. Offer help to someone struggling. Be the Owen in someone's story. Be the reminder that transformation is possible and beautiful things can emerge from broken places. Remember Jasper's words. Complete transformation requires complete dissolution, but that dissolution isn't death. It's reorganization. It's the messy, necessary work of becoming. So whatever chrysalis you're in right now, whatever darkness surrounds you, whatever dissolution you're experiencing, hold on. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Your butterfly wings are forming. And when you emerge, when you finally take flight, you'll understand that every moment of darkness was necessary for the beauty to come. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community of people who believe in second chances and transformation and the radical power of seeing each other's humanity. Until next time, keep transforming, beautiful people. Keep emerging. Keep flying. This is Love in Twilights with Dr. Phillips. And remember, you're never just surviving. You're always becoming. The afternoon sun filtered through the butterfly pavilion one last time as our story draws to a close. Autumn stood with her family, her hand in Owen's, watching Jasper explain migration patterns to Clara. The butterfly on his finger prepared for its long journey south. Successful emergence, Jasper said, using their family phrase one more time. Metamorphosis achieved. And as that butterfly took flight, rising on invisible currents toward an instinctive destination thousands of miles away, Autumn understood the final truth. Transformation isn't a destination, it's a journey, one we take again and again, dissolving and reorganizing and emerging throughout our entire lives. She looked at Owen, at her children, at the life they had built from a canceled birthday cake, and a chance encounter, and 2 wounded people brave enough to believe in second chances. Successful emergence indeed. Metamorphosis achieved. And the most beautiful part? The transformation was just beginning.